Like, are they companies? Are they a different type of entity? Like, should I look up exactly what to call them?
They're startup companies.
They're startup companies. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're a mess.
So, do you want to do the Freudian slips intro? Like, do you want to welcome everyone to Freudian slips this time?
Oh, the kinks, the thinks, and the shrinks.
Yeah.
The shrinks, the thinks, and the kinks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try. After my jingle?
After your jingle,
Okay.
I'll say hi, you say hi.
No, you said
No. You say hi, I say hi, you say Freudian slips, and then I'll do the first bit.
Oh my God. Okay, we're just going to go slow. We're going to go slow. I also, the jingle thing is, at first I thought it was so fun, and now I'm like, it's a level of creativity I don't know if I have in me. And I don't know what other jingles to use.
Ollie, this is only season 2.
Idea. Lipidoos. Maybe? Oh, we're going. Okay. Freudian slips. That's it for this time. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Ollie.
Welcome back. I'm trying it this time. Welcome back to Freudian Slips, where we discuss the shrinks, the thinks, and the kinks of the mental health field. I also pointed to my head when I said kinks because I was back on the thinks. It was a whole thing. But Danny, get us in.
Hi. Yeah, in this episode, we're going to be discussing the debate and the mixed feelings behind therapists paneling with insurance companies. And more specifically, we're going to be discussing platforms such as Alma and Headway.
So there's a few different ways that therapists can accept insurance in private practice, which I'm not sure if everyone knows. They can either directly panel with the insurance company itself, or they can work under a larger company, such as startups that have been, more recently popular, like Alma, Headway, Rula, Grow. I'm sure that there's more out there. They panel with those in order to see clients from different insurances without dealing with all of the paperwork and the logistics themselves. So it's a way that therapists can almost kind of feel like they're just seeing people through private pay or their individual practice. But you don't need to necessarily, because you're not doing all this background stuff that we'll get into that you have to do if you're paneling directly with insurance companies.
Why did we think that this was an important conversation to have? Because originally, when we were starting kind of the episode lineup for this season, like we did in a previous episode, what we did is we compared different EHR platforms. And what we noticed in retrospect is that if we try and compare different platforms like Rula, Alma, Headway, blah blah blah, then it would be actually a lot of the same. I think the biggest difference between those platforms is, one, how much they pay out, and that's something that we can't discuss, and two is how they, the company, make their money. So whether that be taking a cut from your rate, what you charge the client, or whether it be a monthly subscription. And so we were really close to kind of just Xing this episode completely. And then I think it kind of dawned on us that when we're on our groups and listening to other therapists kind of discuss these things, there is a lot of frustration, grief around these. There are groups that are made specifically people this is a hot button issue, right?
This is
there
a
are
hot
people who
take
get
in the therapy world.
it if you take insurances, you can't sit with us. And so I was like, maybe we should kind of come back and just explore this, kind of share this with people so they can have a better understanding of kind of what goes behind the scenes with this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And Danny, like you mentioned, I think it's good that you pointed out that some of these are EHRs as well. So if you see people in your private practice that are cash pay, they encourage you to move them on to, or give you as an option to move those on to their platform, and you can store all their notes there. Even if your billing and everything isn't done through there, they don't care. They're you can put it all here. We can take over your psychology. We will start paying for your Psychology Today profile. I think there's a pattern that I think we're seeing amongst these where they try to give out what I think are supposed to be viewed as perks. And then we end up hearing later in some of these forums with therapists, or just through the grapevine with therapists, that it's oh yeah, they said they'd pay for my Psychology Today profile. They've actually completely taken it over. And again, I'm not saying blaming one of these companies specifically. I just know that this happens where then people will even try to call the number on their Psychology Today profile, which again is a kind of like a directory for therapists. And they will not get the phone call on their office or work phone, and they don't know where it's being directed. So that's kind of this whole other piece to it, is I think some of them offer incentives, or it seems like, oh, cool, this could actually be like a really nice one-stop shop. But I think it's kind of murky what they're promising. And also, they're all relatively new. And so I don't think a lot of these things have existed long enough for us to even know how they're going to progress, or what kinds of like agreements are going to change in the future, or even if they're going to be around in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point to bring up, is that the majority of these things are startup companies that are backed by venture capitalists. And so that's something that we'll kind of hit on towards the end of the episode, but just kind of like keep that in your mind, is that these are businesses with the intention of making money, and that also kind of fuels the debate. If we make a distinction between you paneling with insurance versus you going through one of these companies, the biggest difference that I've noticed is, one, the paneling process. I've heard that when you try and panel with an insurance directly by yourself, that this can take months. Whereas when you end up joining one of these groups, they can get you paneled in little as a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the other biggest thing, I had it on the top of my head, was the ability to negotiate rates. If you panel with insurances directly yourself, independently, you also have a bigger chance to be able to negotiate rates in the future. Whereas when you join one of these startup groups, Alma, Rula, Headway, at the start, they tend to give you a bigger payout because they're the ones negotiating with the insurance companies, but that's the rate. You don't negotiate rates when you're with these people. So just kind of keep that in mind. Not that negotiating your rates is an easy thing to begin with. It's a very, very difficult thing. But if that's important to you, and if you're deciding to go the insurance route, that might be something that you think about.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, Danny, too, I learned one of the insurance, well, I guess we'll get to this, but I guess spoiler alert, one of the insurance I do accept, at one point I was like, oh, I wonder if I just directly paneled with that insurance. Like, if that would just be easier, or, what the rate would be. Unbeknownst to me, the rates are different. So it's not like if at, this day and time, someone chooses to go to, let's say, Alma versus, an insurance they would have been paneled through on Alma, they go to them directly. The rate and the reimbursement will not necessarily be equal at all.
Yes.
And
Yes.
And also the paperwork, Danny, I know I only had this experience when I wanted to keep going with a few clients that were trying to use their Kaiser insurance. And I was like, you know what? For a few people, I might do it, because I've heard that you can just have like I think they're called like single case agreements or something, where you're not saying you accept the insurance overall, but you will work with the insurance company for like said client or clients. And the person I got on the phone from Kaiser, bless them, they were so sweet. But they were like, yeah, you're going to need to order these forms from Amazon that you need to like write in a certain color ink. You need to mail it to us, like in the mail. It's like a packet. I'm like, okay, oh geez, this is a ton. I'm like, all right, well, once I get done with that, like then how about every time I see them after that? And they're like, oh no, you need to do this every single time you see a client. And I was like, oh my God. And he was so sweet. The man said, he was like, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I've never talked to a therapist who agreed to do this. And I completely understand. Like, it's ridiculous. So that's the other thing too, is it might not be to that extent with every insurance, but there is like a level of paperwork. Like, just imagine government paperwork that we all hate filling out, that you need to fill out on top of like your notes and everything for the session to submit to insurances if you're paneling directly with an insurance. Where I think, again, one of the kind of pros or selling points of a lot of these more umbrella companies is they're saying, hey, we'll do all of that. You just see the person, write your note, and we will handle all of that. So that's, I think, one of the other like distinctions between the insurance company itself and if you're working under one of these startups.
Yeah. So, and then to that is once you stop working with those startup companies, then you are no longer paneled. Whereas when you panel directly, you're paneled, right? And there's a lot of like legalities and stuff that you kind of have to get into. When you are working with one of those companies, if you end your subscription, if you stop, then your agreement with those, your arrangement with those panels is also terminated.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's something to keep in mind because you might look at these startup companies on the surface and be like, oh my God, that's so great. They take care of all the legwork. I love that. And it is nice for as long as you work with those companies. But it's their agreement with the insurance, it's their rates that they're offering you. And so once you leave or end your relationship with the company, you're also ending your relationship with the insurance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and Danny, I think we're already kind of touching on some of the positives, or like touching on why people might want to work with these companies. So,
hmm
can you start us off? Why do you think some people choose to take insurance and or work for these kind of companies?
Yeah, beautiful. To kind of start off, and I think it might be helpful to say that Ollie and I are, we're not trying to kind of sway one person one way or the other. We really thought this would just be a nice conversation to kind of help people understand the reasons why a therapist might not or might accept these things, because this is also something that we hear often that clients are very disgruntled, that they're kind of upset because it's like, oh, I can't find a clinician that accepts my insurance. And so after this episode you might understand a little bit as to why.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the pros, why might someone choose to take insurance or work for one of these companies? Is right off the bat is that they really help fill up your caseload.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's one of the biggest things. Plain and simple. Is
Well, but Danny, I will say, like Headway, for example, because I did join Headway for a while when I joined Alma, and because they had similar reimbursement rates. And Headway made it clear, and some of the other ones do too. They try to say, like, hey, we are not a referral source. Like, we're not going to funnel people to you. This is just like as they find you, which granted, it still helps if you're just searching up therapists on the internet and maybe you want to use insurance and we're cash pay. We're never going to come up. Or it's like, it helps a little bit if it's like, all right, I take your insurance and you're looking for a white female who specializes in what I do, and I take your insurance. Like, that at least puts me in the pool or gets me you eyes on my profile. So I get what they're saying by that, but I was on Headway for maybe like 6 months and like not on like nothing at all. And so I was
mm,
like, okay, this is a little different. And I've heard some people say that even about Alma. They're like, oh, crickets. Like I'm not paying what it costs to like be a part of Alma for this to happen. And that was my experience with Headway. So some I think are a little more like that are still client driven. Alma's similar. Like clients need to pick you. You still have a
yes.
profile on there. It's still like a directory. They need to
hmm
reach out to you. They'll do I mean, if you offer a consult call, you'll have a consult call. Like, it feels a lot like a cash pay like experience and like funnel, where there's other platforms that you basically, like, I know Grow is like this. Well, I don't know about like Octave but there's other platforms where you basically just plop in when you're free. And like, you could say you're free every hour of the day, 7 days a week, and those will freaking fill up. Like, people just plop themselves into your openings and you won't really know much about them. I think some platforms try and be like, oh, hey, this person with like this demographic, this is what they need, blah, 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 wants to meet with you that day. Like, basically just reach out or tell us if this like isn't a good fit. I kind of think that that's few and far between. I think most of them are just like, you're meeting with Chelsea H on Thursday. And you're like,
Yeah.
what? Like, who are you? Can I even help you? I know nothing about you.
Yeah.
And so some of them operate like that. So there are different ways that they can, like, quote unquote, fill up your caseload. But I think some are almost instantaneous. It's like, you want a full caseload next week? Girl, you're going to have a full caseload next week. And then there's others that I think are still, they get you more visibility, but you are still kind of at the mercy of people reaching out to you. you deciding if they're good clients. Like it will happen slower than on other platforms, but probably fill you up still quicker than like a fully cash pay model.
Yes. So I love that. That's going to be something that I want to kind of circle back to towards the end
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about like just general little tidbits for people to kind of know about. So yeah, agree with you 100%. When I say that it fills up your caseload, what we're talking about is that today, with inflation, with how expensive everything is, people are very much wanting to use their insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you compare the marketing and all of the stuff that we do as private pay therapists to get our clients, and you compare that to someone who is able to accept insurance, they on average will tend to have a much easier time to fill their caseload.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, depending on what service platform or company you work with, that, your mileage may vary. But if you are wondering, hey, we make private pay therapists, we make exponentially more than someone who's paneled with insurance. Why would anyone ever want to do that? Well, the truth is that we have our work cut out for us getting our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Is just because you offer a premier service doesn't mean that everyone is available to get that. And people want to use their insurance, and they should. Like I'm not even upset about it. That's what it's supposed to be for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not really their fault that the American healthcare system is fucked. They want to use their insurance. And so I see that mostly when people try to break into private practice after like a few months, they get very, very kind of disheartened. They get burnt out, and then insurance is a good way to start to kind of bring clients in.
Mm-hmm. And I know I'm technically skipping our second bullet point, Danny, but I want to go down to the third one because I feel like what you said kind of just touched on it. Is I
Sure,
think
yeah.
it also can give people a steady stream of clients that can feel more like job security. So even though at any time and with any of these models, people can decide on a whim they don't want to go to therapy anymore. But again, on some of these platforms, it feels like someone pops out by the next time that slot rolls around next week, you'll have a new person. Other times it might not be as quick, but take for example, I feel like right now in therapy I'm talking all the time with people about like the tariffs that are coming up or just the
Yeah, yeah.
uncertainty that we're in the world right now. And even if it's not like what they came to session to talk about, it's like come up in some sort of flavor. And I think when you are entirely cash pay, this can be a little more scary, and it might feel like, oh yeah, totally understandable if like everyone within the next few weeks is like, Ollie, I might put this on pause and hit you up in
Hmm.
a month and we'll just see kind of how things in financing go. And it's like, that's totally understandable. But if someone's using insurance, they're likely to have a much lower copay or no copay. And that can even like encourage them to go more. Like these kinds of things happening in the world might be like, oh, I definitely want to go talk to someone because I'm super stressed and this will cost me $15.
Yeah.
So I think even though technically it's not the same type of job security that I think other fields have, like people can still choose tomorrow to all leave, it can feel more secure just in terms of like, oh, but I know if people go out, there will be others coming in. Where I've heard horror stories of therapists that are like, oh yeah, I was totally fine for years. And then just like the state of the world or like everyone seemed to be traveling all of a sudden it dipped and it was like, oh shit, I can't pay my bills. And I've like never been in this position before. So I think it can also make people feel like they have more control over like, okay, even if the people themselves are moving in and out, I feel confident I can keep between like 15 and 20 sessions a week. And like I can rely on that income.
Yeah, very good. Beautiful. Going back to point two,
Yes.
why would someone want to panel with insurances or work with one of these startup companies? And I say this with all the love and the respect, is that yes, we deserve to make a livable wage. Yes, we deserve way more than any of these companies have to offer. And we're not the only ones struggling. At the end of the day, like this argument that so many therapists have with the startup companies or with insurances in general, I think it's a good argument. It's a fight that we need to be fighting, but I think sometimes we forget that the one that might lose the most is the client.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the reasons why you might decide to open up some spots and work with one of these companies or panel with an insurance is because you really want to help people that need it. It's easy for us to kind of sit back and say, well, this is my rate and I'm going to come in, and you might very well be an amazing therapist. But we also have to remember that the ones who can least afford you are likely the ones that need you most. And so that might be, before you cast a stone, before you get upset, before you, kind of ostracize the person that has decided to work with one of these companies or panel with an insurance, you have to consider, hey, they're out there helping people. Like, the clients are still real people that need help.
Hmm.
And so it's great to see a really good therapist kind of take one for the team and say, hey, it really isn't always about the money.
And Danny, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've specifically seen, and I kind of love that with insurance, not every client, but I will get clients that I see through insurance or contact me knowing they want to use their insurance that are kind of, they're like, nah, I don't know how I feel about therapy. I've never been. And I don't know if it's the same like last episode where I'm just so passionate about people wanting to think about being therapists, where it's I love when someone, especially they tend to be older males in my boat, are I don't really know. My wife wants me to go. It's I think that it's nice to give people an opportunity to try therapy where those people are not reaching out to me, seeing my cash pay price and finding me on it. They're what? I'm not looking. So sometimes it can be nice that they might just even be having a bad day, or a friend or a spouse is oh, just try it. And then you get on, one of these pages that's my work said that this site's where I could find someone, you seem like you'd be a good fit. You want to try a
Mhm.
few? And it's nice to see how people can really come around. Or you'll see them for a few months and they're wow, I didn't realize this could be therapy, or that this is what therapy was like. And then it's
Yeah.
before long, they're just no, I told, my wife I was coming to see you. She said to tell you hello. It's I love it. I'm yes, we look at this rapport. Are we best friends? No, obviously not. Professional relationship, but it feels great. And I'm I love seeing people try therapy when maybe they don't know, or they've been hesitant in the past, and you're not going to get that all the time necessarily in a cash pay kind of model, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. So if you are considering joining an insurance panel or one of these startup companies, those are one of the biggest reasons why someone might decide to do so. If your caseload is down and you're trying to get it up, then this might be a good idea for you. It does add a little bit more job security, and then also because you might have a desire to really kind of help people who can't afford out-of-pocket costs.
Mm-hmm.
So those are great reasons to join. There is a big debate, some controversy, and a lot of mixed feelings about insurances and these companies. And so this is something that we can talk about next.
Mm-hmm.
Starting us off is insurances and these startup companies don't pay a livable wage. And so in preparation for this episode, I looked up an article, and then Ollie, you looked up an article and it was just as depressing. So your article, so what you looked up was occupational employment and wages as of May 2023. And then I looked up one that was a little bit more up to date, saying as of May 2020 this
Mm-hmm.
year. And both of them are relatively the same, just so that you guys are aware. Kind of let's paint the picture. Ollie, my dear,
Yes.
how much did it cost for you to get to where you are today?
Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying you can do this cheaper. I did not pick the cheapest route.
You got two
I
masters.
also got 2 master's degrees at the
Yeah.
same time. So it would have been cheaper if I just got the one. But for all intensive purposes, even though my other job is very, very different, it's still technically a psychology job. And so, first of all, undergrad, I had absolutely no loans. I had a big enough scholarship. Thankfully, my sister wanted to go to USC. My parents helped out with that. So when I picked a school that gave me a bunch of money, they're like, all right, we can cover the rest. And I was like, thank you, family. You're wonderful. And so I had no loans coming out of undergrad. So that was no issue for me. So this is not including anything that undergrad would cost if people had to take out loans for that. My entire grad program, which was 4 full years, including summers. Normally it's 3 years if you're just doing an MFT. Or Danny, I know we've talked in other episodes, like there's even less time apparently. But of the ones near me, Bay Area, they all seemed like 3-year programs. Mine was 4 because I got both degrees. It was about $120,000. I might have been like 122. The first 2 years, I was able to work full time, just in like odd jobs, doing whatever. And I paid it off as I went. And it wasn't until the last 2 years that I wasn't able to keep working, because at that point I was needing to work at like internships and things for whether it was school psych or the MFT stuff, honestly, where I'm basically working full time, going to school full time, and I was making no money at these jobs. I think my last year, the school psych job gave me a stipend. So for a full school year, I believe we made like $23,000. So essentially, I'm still working full time. I just couldn't work even more than that to keep paying off school. So those, I ended up having loans, and that was about, I probably graduated and had about $70,000 to $80,000 that I owed from school. And again, I could have done this differently. That was with both of my master's degrees, but yeah, that's also with no undergrad borrowing of money whatsoever.
Congratulations, by the way. I know how hard you worked to pay that off.
Thank you. I would tutor in the evenings. I was a homeschool teacher. I did anything I could freaking think of.
Yeah. And this is by no means to say that the client should pay our loans off for us.
No.
That's not what this is about. The reason why we're bringing up these numbers is just to give you a picture of the investment it takes for us to do what we love.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like Danny, that's why I specifically wanted to point out. I was like, I'm not going to let the government win. I'm going to work my ass off this whole time and pay it off as I go. And then when the nature of the school became like, okay, you need to now do these internships that are entirely unpaid, but that are a part of getting your degree. It was like, well, it's no longer my decision. Like, I physically am out of the house at 6 a.m. I get back at 10:30 p.m. and I've made no money today. And I've been going from thing to thing the entire day. And so I think it's important people know that, because unfortunately, this is something that I think you need to be prepared to either know upfront you should save before you start school, have a spouse. I mean, and I don't mean unfortunately, but I just mean like, be fortunate enough to have someone in your life who's willing to help you and like maybe either fund this or other parts of your life and kind of take charge for a while you do this. Or know that you're going to borrow money, and like that might have a big interest payment attached to it when you're done, and like accurate expectations of how long that might take you to pay back and if this is worth it for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on my end of things, I got one master's, and that one cost me about $50,000. $50,000 for a 3-year program, and then my PhD, I think, cost me about another $30,000 for another 3-year program. And so think about that financial investment, all right? To then practice at the level that we practice today. Have that in your mind, and then go back to these articles where they say that the average insurance counselor makes $20 to $40 an hour. Okay? $20 to $40 an hour. Let that sink in.
Well, and for reference too, because that can seem like a big jump, but at the 20-hour mark, oh God, what is that, Danny? You're probably making like 40-ish, 40 something, like low 40 something thousand a year. And then at $40 an hour, that equates to like 83,000. Well, okay, I have the number, $83,892 a year. And those, the 40 was specifically in California, for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's important. Because that is going to vary state by state. The nation average is $20 an hour. What is the minimum wage?
I don't even know. I think in California it's like $17.50. Am I
$17.50.
crazy? Am I crazy?
No. I think it's. I mean, I haven't checked, but it is so close
I know.
to what a mental health professional paneled with insurance is going to make.
Well, and I think it's so many more points, Danny. Number one, this is for a licensed professional. So
Yeah.
that's not to count when you're done with school. I'm pretty sure if you like haul ass and work full time, it takes you like 1.5 to 2 years to be able to get the hours, 2 years to get the hours you need to sit for your licensing exam. You are not getting paid this when you're an AMFT. You might be making maybe 20, maybe closer to 20 an hour. I don't know. They're like, but it's definitely on the lower end of this, or depending, it totally depends how you decide to get your hours. But you are not making as good of money when you're an associate as when you're licensed. So again, if you took out loans, school cost money, you might now be accruing interest when you are
Yeah.
just 100% unable to pay for that.
Hmm.
So that might only grow for 2 years. And then, oh, Danny, I had one other one. What were we saying about, you keep going, it'll come back to me. Because that was one of the caveats I wanted to make.
I like that you brought that interest thing up. I totally forgot about that. Luckily, because of COVID and we had like the forbearance, I actually had to pay very minimal interest because there's only like a small amount of time in between when I graduated to when the world took a shit that interest was accruing.
Yeah.
And as everything that I was making as an associate was going to kill that number because I can't imagine, like I'm very, very lucky.
Hmm.
I can't imagine what that number that even I paid, what you paid with interest
Oh my God.
would be like.
No, and I honestly, again, point of privilege, I was able to borrow that money from my family. They were like, "Hey girl, we apologize. We can't help you with this, but like we can loan you the money and you can at least pay us back so that you're not having to pay interest on it."
Yeah.
And so that was a complete lifesaver. And yeah, like that completely helped me, but like these are things you really need to think about because that can and then what if while you're an associate, you have kids? Or like you don't just have the luxury of throwing all of that. Like, oh, now you have an income. You can throw all of that at loans. Like maybe you
Right.
can't. So it's like they're just, and again, last episode, I want everyone to be a therapist. But I don't want that to be misconstrued as like it's easy to do so. I think there's much harder schooling. I'm not here to say that I could have passed a law exam. I'm not. This was not that. At least for someone like me, this was not that, okay? But the amount of like mental, like I would drive home and just cry. And not like a cry, no, like just single tear rolling down your face. And you're like, this is really weird. I thought I was in a great mood. I don't know what's going on. And then you just realize, oh, I've just been exhausted for 4 fucking years. Like it lowers your life expectancy. Okay, Snapple fact. But that's anything. That's law school, med school. If you want to go to higher education, you're going to die a little earlier, probably. It's fine. Get over it. Also, you can fact check me on that. I'd love to know I'm wrong. But it's like there's all this research that shows just how completely draining these programs are. And I mean, it's like to just day in and day out, wake up at the ass crack of dawn, come back just feeling like depleted when my eyes twitched and knowing I was like, okay, cool. That was 2 days this week. I need to do it another 3. And then some semesters we had full Saturday classes. And so it's not so much that I think the work itself was really hard. But I think you really have to know what you're getting into and that you want this. And I think that's why Danny and I find it so important to talk about numbers and be as transparent as we can. Because like we mentioned with insurance, we can't like say what the reimbursement rates are. But we can obviously point out it's probably less than what you're making if you charge cash pay in your for your practice. And it's just, I just want people to have accurate expectations of what they're getting into here. And yeah, it's not this like I would love to be a therapist, talking to people all day, making like $300 an hour. Like you're so lucky. And it's like, yes, I do think I'm very, very lucky. But like also, I'd love to see you ride that roller coaster. Sorry, I'm done.
I love it. So yeah, that's one of the biggest issues that kind of just stops the whole conversation to begin with is just the amount of clients you have to see to make a livable wage really kind of calls into question the practice as a whole, right? As mental health practitioners, our job is to help people develop healthy skills and have a good work-life balance. And then you want to be compensated at a rate that almost disallows you from having a work-life balance.
Sorry, I remembered my other thing.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Also, this is when I mentioned the salaries, that's obviously assuming like a 40-hour work week. A part of why I love our job is because we get to pick exactly how much we work. And you know what? I'm in a season of life where I probably do too much. And that's fine, because I know I will throttle back when I need to. But most therapists, on average, do not see like 8 people a day, especially 5 days a week. Like if they do, it's not 5 days a week, like on average. And so when you see this like hourly rate, I think people assume like, oh, well, they just assume it's an 8-hour day, or they assume that it's like, oh, I'll just see more people. And it's like, it's a very different work hour. Some people you talk to and you're like, this is my job, this is awesome. And then other times you log on and you're like, what? Like, okay. Like, I've heard some of the most freaking horrific things in my life at work. And I'm just like, all right, I just have like 4 more. It's cool. That's fine. I'll just bounce back. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's fucking 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. So, oh, Danny, I'll never forget the chinchillas. It's just like there's all these people I think need to take that kind of stuff into account. It's like you might realize that like this job is awesome for you if you could see 3 people a week, or I mean a day, like 3 or 4 or something like that. And it's like, okay, but and I love that for you, but then you just might need to have more realistic expectations, or even like do something else and be a therapist. Like that could be really fun too. But sorry, that was the only other caveat I had too, is it's not a typical 8-hour day.
Yeah. And kind of to that point, is if the client doesn't show up, when we're working with insurances, we can't bill the insurance to pay us anyways.
You don't get paid, but you better wait on the call for 15 minutes of your time. But if they don't show up, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
Are you dumb? You entitled bitch. Why do you think you'd get paid? It's crazy.
Yeah.
That
So
was sarcasm.
something that you might know or might be familiar with is that this is a much bigger thing when you're working with private pay or out-of-network therapists, is that we have cancellation policies, right? So if you don't cancel, if you don't communicate, because it is a real relationship, if you decide to just ghost your therapist, usually there are things put in place to make sure that they get compensated for the time that not only the time that they're devoting to the session, but also all the time they're devoting outside of the session to prepare for working with you. If you don't show up, they usually charge your card anyways. Now, when we're talking about these platforms, these startup companies, a lot of them to try and kind of to try and bridge that gap and make sure that there is some kind of payment security, a lot of them are starting to move into a must-have auto pay. So they are strongly encouraging to requiring clients using these platforms to have credit cards on file, so that if they decide to not show up for whatever reason, that the therapist can still be compensated. But how that therapist is compensated is then something very, very different. The insurance is definitely not going to cover it, because they say, well, no session, no payment. What does that have to do with us? Tough luck. And so then it becomes a conversation of like, okay, this person is already, likely low income, is already like needing resources. How much is it okay to charge them? And then how do I collect that payment? That conversation gets a little bit more complicated when we're going through these companies or when we're paneling with insurances.
That's a good point, Danny. Another reason why I think a lot of therapists are upset with these platforms, or like why it's so controversial, is there's definitely a belief that because more of these exist and are like being marketed and like, really like shoved down people's throats of like, here's where you can find therapy, it's lowering the amount of people that are looking for a cash pay therapist. And I don't think that is wrong. Like, I agree. But I also think, once people go through the ringer or start to understand this enough, or have a high therapist turnover, or unfortunately, if they get a therapist that they can tell is just like, what the F? Like, because I've heard horror stories where people are like, yeah, if you're paying my therapist $30 an hour, I can tell. Like, they don't seem like they're that into this.
Yeah.
I think, those people will eventually realize that they should go for more of a cash pay model if there's a certain type or consistency of therapy they're looking for. And honestly, whether that's related to the therapist or their insurance, quite frankly. And also, I think there's just a certain population of people that are not looking to use insurance. And I have had people before that I've been like, oh, like that's literally the one insurance I take. And they're like, Ollie, don't even bother. They're like, I hate them. This is not like I've had to deal with them for other services in the past. I like literally don't even want to have anything to do with this. And I'm like, okay. So I think there are some people that don't even consider going that route, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think, Danny?
I think kind of to that point, and I can kind of jump to another point to just kind of tie them together, is one of the a big reason why many of us are upset or have mixed feelings about insurances and these companies is that it tends to perpetuate that like low standard or low opinion of mental health in general. So what I mean by that is mental health has seen a rise in credibility over the years, thank goodness, but it's still a developing field. And so when the client sees $15 and they don't realize that if you don't show up, we don't get paid, or, we can only get paid for that hour. And then we have all of these companies pop up that say, well, only pay this much and only pay this much. And if you don't like your therapist, don't worry about it. Just let us know. We'll get you to someone else, right? There really starts to become this, what is it? What kind of word am I looking for?
A devaluing?
It is a devaluing, but it's this culture of devaluing. And this kind of leads into the conversation of venture capitalists in general, but kind of staying here for a second, is there is this culture that I actually don't have to build a relationship with the professional. If I don't like them, for whatever reason, they could be speaking nothing but the God's honest truth. And because it doesn't ring well to my ears, I'm going to move on to someone else.
I was literally just going to say that, Danny, is I think there's such a not to say there's some therapists you'll meet that you're just like, F you. You're like, not nice. I don't like you.
Definitely is.
But I think there's other types of fields where it's like, yeah, you might just meet someone and you're like, hi, your bedside manner sucks. Like, I'd like someone different. But like, therapists are supposed to like help you through something you're probably finding really challenging or you're struggling with, or like a part of our job is to kind of provide some level of pushback or insight or things that you don't always want to hear. Therapy is not always the number one place people want to be. And if you just are given this messaging from like the platform we quote unquote work for, that's like, oh, you don't like them? Don't worry. Like, we'll give you a different pair of shoes. And you're just like, okay, like, yeah, no, I want someone else. I want someone else. It's like that kind of in a way goes against what like the whole nature of therapy is supposed to be doing a little bit, which is to like challenge you and make you a little uncomfortable. And again, I'm not saying that's always the case whatsoever, but I think, yeah, when you have a model and like a platform that's telling you like, oh, why would you go anywhere else to get therapy? Like, come here, you can only pay $20. And then people get angry and it's like, oh, like all these therapists keep leaving. And it's like, what do you think they're paying therapists if you're paying $20?
Yeah.
Like the people that are just don't quite compute the two, I get going and then later realizing like, oh, I had no clue it was this bad. I totally get it. But for this just like complete lack of awareness around like, oh, like, yeah, I didn't show up. Like, why did I get charged $15? It's like, girl, you had a prime time spot and you're lucky I didn't charge you $200. Like, are you insane? So, yeah, sorry, that was my take on that.
No, it's beautiful because when working with insurances compared to my private practice life, I have exponentially more just no calls, no shows, just people falling off the face of the earth. And it's because, well, I don't want to say it's because, but I do think that there is a correlation, is that the value that we set on this, and I'm not blaming the client for setting this value. It's the value that's given to them by insurances, by, the powers that be that decide what rates and how to pay us. They start by setting the standard, and we as the professionals often have very little power or influence over them unless we start like a huge movement or a huge protest or blah, blah, blah. And so when that value is set and then people just come to accept that value, I'm taking time out of my day to get to know you. Let me see if we're going to be a good fit. Our consultations are free, so I'm already not making anything off of that hour. Happily. I'm not upset about this. I'm already not making anything off of the hour to get to know you, and then the person's just like, fuck it, not gonna come. It's like that the culture that often follows insurances and these startup companies is one that can be very demoralizing to a therapist when your
Yeah.
job is to manage emotional wellness, and then you're constantly, your own emotional health is constantly being attacked just by the machine that is a startup company or an insurance panel. It gets hard and annoying very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned earlier, Danny, like I get it. We're not brain surgeons. I am not literally saving someone's life. I could never look at a drop of blood. No, thank you. Like, I'm not saying I'm walking in there with like the white coat and it's like, I'm better than you. 0%. But like, it'd be really cool if like it just makes you feel so little respect that it's like,
Yeah.
I do have like a master's degree in this. I like worked really hard and I studied this for many years. Like, be really nice if you just like send me a freaking email
Yeah.
and told me, or yeah, if insurance companies, it's like we need to battle, I feel like, to get an extra dollar, but then they'll shoot an email. And I know I told this to Danny before he was on Alma, one insurance company that luckily I wasn't paneled with them, but it's like they just shot out an email and they were like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, this one insurance company, they're pulling out. They're pulling out. So if you see those clients, wrap it up. They're gone in like 3 days. All right, cool, bye. Like it's nuts that it could be like, whoa, like what if that was like all of someone's clients? Or it's like, that means in 3 days you can go from making thousands of dollars to literally none in 3 days. And so it's just there's a very, to me, it feels like a very clear lack of respect that especially insurance companies have for therapists. And then also, which I get it, it's just business, whatever. But like still, it's not respectful. And then I think the way that some of the companies like market things or the way that they try to like sell clients
Yes. Yeah.
only
Yeah.
furthers like that.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's like the best way to say it is the way that many companies, we're not naming one specifically,
Mm-mm.
but the way that many companies market themselves to the client is often by selling that culture of disrespect for the clinician. Like it very
Mm-hmm.
much is, this is something that you can have at a very low rate and have it the way that you want it anyway. And it's like, you don't understand that there is another person who's wanting to help you. There's another person whose career this actually is. The person who's marketing is not a therapist. That is a business person. The person they're connecting you to is a therapist, and that person is the one who's sacrificing their time, is getting their resources together to help you. And when it is marketed in such a way that says, fuck them, it's fine. That's really upsetting.
Yeah.
That kind of moves on to venture capitalists as a whole. And so I've been seeing this come up a lot more recently, is that many therapists, even though these startup companies offer significantly higher rates when compared to just paneling with an insurance independently, a lot of therapists are choosing not to work with these companies because they're funded by venture capitalists. So if you are unaware of what a VC company is, it's a type of private equity company that provides financing for startups with high growth potential. And so why don't people like this idea? Is because since you have these VC companies that are funding startup companies like Alma and Headway, what that means is that things, policies, and culture can change at the drop of a hat. So if they pull their funding, all of a sudden you can lose all of your clients. The companies can get shut down. The rates, whether it be how much they take out of your cut or how much the subscription fee is, those can raise, we don't know what it's going to be like in a month. We don't know what it's going to be like in a year, right? They might add a bunch of stuff that we as professionals may not find the most use to, but then we're then going to have to pay for. And that's something that is very frustrating for a lot of people. It ends up feeling as though, like, I'm working so hard, and yet so much of what I'm making or so much of what I'm bringing in is then going back into this capitalist like society. And a lot of therapists have a problem with that. Personally, I'm a little bit softer on that stuff. And I think that's always just been because of my I have like notoriously low brand loyalty. I don't give a shit. Like I have no problem leaving because mind you, at the end of the day, like I have my own business, you have your own business, we work for ourselves, but we don't mind sparking up a small little relationship with, some of these things because, oh, they went under, fuck them. All right, great. I'm gonna think else. But also it's like when you do think, this is, I guess I'm slightly giving a grace to people who do decide to panel with these because they might get a lot of shit for it. And so I want to say, I see you. This is why they might do it. When you consider the amount of work it takes to get paneled independently, whether they're backed by venture capitalists or not, that is a service that they are providing, right? And like you mentioned at the top of the episode, many of these platforms have their own EHR systems. And so you're able to do so much on these things. They have their own telehealth integrated into it. They have their forms already for you. Those are services that you would have to be doing all by yourself. And so to think like it's a weird argument that some therapists make when they say it's so upsetting that these venture capitalists are just taking our money. And it's like, but you're buying their service.
Yeah.
Like I get it. It's weird that like you're always paying someone and it always feels as if you're paying someone. But at the same time, the basic structure of our job is to absorb and collect information. And you, the client, are paying us to disseminate that information. And so it's the same thing. We are spending time.
Like you have to pay for something.
Yeah,
It's
you
going to go
can.
somewhere.
You can go on Google Scholar. Google Scholar.
Scholar.
All right. You can go on Deep Dive. You can go on reputable scientific search engines and get the information that fuels our understanding and our ability to be therapists. You can, but you don't. Why? Because that information is really boring and because that information is difficult for a lot of people to understand, right? It's an art. Many of my students, which I love so very, very much, which are darlings and angels, and I cherish every single one of them, still can't read articles, still can't read research articles because they are difficult to read. It is our job to learn how to read those things, to make sense of the information, and you are paying us to give you that information. So it's not like, all of this understanding, knowledge, and whatever the hell is just organically coming from me. Like, I'm paying you, or you're paying me to do something that I've gotten from somewhere else. And so it's like, yeah, I'm paying a company to do something that I can do by myself, but I don't fucking want to.
And also, I will say, you're not a good therapist to yourself, regardless.
What?
Like, even you or me. Well, because, like, technically people could find out this information, but it would be the same as, like, if a therapist was struggling with something. Like, therapists struggle with things all the
Oh,
time.
okay.
We still need to go to other therapists.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you can know this shit. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. It helps so much more to pay someone to be like, did you do that thing this week that we talked about? And you're like, that's right. It's like it feels better knowing like, oh God, okay, yep, they're telling me what to do. I've got to do it. Like it's a way to have accountability. It's always easier to go get that from someone else than from yourself. I don't know. People don't do surgery on themselves. They know how. They're not doing it. So
that's another reason why is you might find it difficult to either panel with or to join one of these companies, or your therapist might be refusing to do this because they have mixed feelings about venture capital. And it's valid. Personally, I don't know if I agree with all of it, but it is valid. These aren't therapists making these things. These are business people trying to make money. Personally, I see it as they're making money like anyone else by providing a service. If you think the service is worthwhile, then just be aware that you are purchasing a service. Another thing that shows up in this debate is, and I think that this one might actually be like the biggest one, if not second biggest to having a livable wage, and that is like the ethics that go into like payment and helping people. And so what I mean by that is whether you're paneled with insurances or whether you're going through one of the startup companies, you need to have a diagnosis. And so what happens when the client does not meet criteria? What happens when the modality or the, a couple comes in versus an individual. For context, I don't know if y'all know this, but couples therapy pays out significantly less than
Like
seeing an
sometimes
individual.
half. Like
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
half, as in less.
So, if you are a couple and if you're trying to find therapy through your insurance and you're finding it hard and difficult to do so, this might be why. Because your couples therapist, for some reason, is making less than they would seeing you individually.
Mm-hmm.
So, then going back to the ethics, is what do you do about that? We want to help you. And so, then what? Do you lie? Do you put diagnoses that aren't really applicable, but they're there to kind of help you get payment? We're just bringing up the conversation of the difficult things people have to think about when working in the field.
And I know, Danny, like we've already talked about, like you and I don't just like automatically diagnose all the
Yeah.
time in our private practice, like with cash pay clients. It's like sometimes I do, but like sometimes we don't really see, like that's not really why people are here. I don't think every single person has some diagnosis. I'm not one of those people. I'm also, random Snapple fact, I'm not one of those therapists that think you have 4 diagnoses. I just think that's ridiculous. I think like sometimes people might have 2. But like when people just come in with a list of like all these diagnoses that they have, I'm not about it. Like you don't have all these things. It might be showing up in a lot of these ways, but like it's probably one or much fewer of these things that what looks like these other things, but they're fueled by, okay, anyway. But anyway, I think that yeah, like you're forced to do a lot of these things when you're getting paid by insurance. And it's quite frankly, I think not, yeah. And then it's like an ethical dilemma that therapists have to face. But then at the same time, it's like it already kind of feels not ethical having to see people under those circumstances or like having to diagnose when like some people could really benefit from therapy. They are struggling with things, but like might not have some diagnosis that the insurance wants to see on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you think about like the niches that we have or the type of clientele that we see, a lot of them aren't coming in with diagnoses or with anything diagnosable to begin with. And it's like to think that, okay, well, in order for you to get insurance, we have to come up with something. I think what that really moves into is that last point that I have is that it often has us working from a perspective of mental illness rather than mental health. And this is something I talked about at
Love that
the
one.
top of the season. And it's the most frustrating thing that in order for us to get paid when we're working with one of these companies or when we're paneled with insurance is that we're constantly trying to we have to look at it feels as though we have to look at everything from the point of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're getting better, well, it's been 6 weeks. We have to give you these raters again. We have to see where your symptoms are. And it's like, heaven forbid you're actually getting better. Because now, like, well, now your therapy and our payment is at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because now the insurances can say, well, they don't meet criteria, or we don't have to justify paying you anymore. And then it's like, well, now it's on you guys.
Yeah.
And so that's a very, very frustrating thing is we want, as therapists, we want to be able to help you in so many areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Me, especially Ollie, I know, and so many other therapists that we talk to, is we want to be helping you guys with mental health. We want to be there while you guys are experiencing the best moments of your life.
Mm-hmm.
By nature of the job, we're there when you're experiencing the hardest moments of your life, but nothing brings me more joy than
Mm-hmm.
being there for you to celebrate the best moments. And it's kind of sad that when they start to get better is when we become more at risk of losing them
Mm-hmm.
because they're trying to use their insurances.
Yeah. And Danny, I know that this, like, I feel like we've already kind of touched on some of these, but I think that's why we want people to know about this stuff. It's not just because we're trying to like talk shit about these companies. Like Danny and I are on Alma. I have tried other ones. Like I have nothing against it. I will always want a majority of my practice to be cash pay, but like I think it's just good for a therapist to know what's going on so that they can better decide if they want to try these things, or for just people to know what's happening behind the scenes. And then if you still want to see therapists through these platforms, that's great. But like know what's going on and how therapists are getting affected, and with your own frustrations with some of these platforms, where some of that might be coming from. And like one of the things that I don't think we quite touched on earlier, but kind of fits in with what we were saying about like, yeah, like we might not be, it's not the same kind of 8-hour job, is like we are looking into things for clients. We are sending emails. Danny and I do consult calls for free. Like we do so many things. We have to write notes, like keep personal notes as well. So it's like 2 sets of notes. It's like there's so many things that therapists have to do behind the scenes that like no one is paying us for that. Whether we're private pay, whether we're seeing insurance, like no one is covering any of those costs. And so I think it's just important for people to know how much work there is. Like the actual talk therapy is just one part of this job. And like there's all these other things that I've heard therapists be like, oh, like it didn't quite think about that, or like I don't love that part. So it's like that all is a part of our workday. So it either means you're working way more than what a normal person works in a day, or your face-to-face therapy you might not be actually seeing that many people and therefore making that much in an hourly wage each day, but it's because all your other time is spent doing these other like managerial type of tasks.
Yeah, all that stuff is a part of the job. And so before anyone says, well, then, just don't do all that work. That sounds like you're putting a lot of stuff on your plate. It's like, no. One, we have to keep notes. And personally, my note taking is very, very short. I don't spend any more than like 2 minutes on a note. I personally don't think it's that bad. But I do know a lot of people need to make entire weekends out of it.
No,
And then
I'm not
when you
willing
are
to.
submitting notes to insurances, is that they have to be specific. You do have to, it could be something that, yeah, the note taking when it comes to submitting for insurance reimbursement is a completely different beast than in private pay. But so if you have to be doing so much more outside of the session, all these books that we have on our bookshelves, they're not just here for decoration. Like we actually read them to
With
prepare for
hundreds
you.
of pounds when we had to move houses. I do not care enough for an aesthetic. I don't.
So if think about this, potential clients, if your therapist is not getting paid for all the work that they do when you're not in front of them, and if they're not making a livable wage, what do you think most of them are going to do? They are just going to not do it. They're not going to do the research. They're not going to do the preparation. They're not, because they're burnt out. They have to go to the next client to make another hourly rate. And so I'm not saying that that's good. I think that definitely begins to show up in the quality of therapy when we start getting into the weeds of some of these companies and other platforms. Like that is, in my opinion, the standard is that we have a lot of work to do outside of therapy because that's what your health is worth. But if you're not going to pay it, then they're probably not going to do the work.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
I get the like therapists do or therapists can make quote unquote a lot of money. I literally had a friend the other day who was telling me that they are a lawyer and they were saying that the new people that they're looking at to come in that are like graduating, starting salaries 225. It's not
yes.
bonuses. That's not anything. Am I trying to compare us to lawyers? No. Did not pick that career field for a reason. But I think like it might sound bad to be like sorry, but like I don't get paid enough to do X, Y, or Z. But again, especially when like the job itself can be so draining, the fact that like some people are doing this in a way where they are working full time or like over 40 hours a week and they are not able to pay their like mortgage or their bills or their whatever. And again, is maybe some of that. I'm just saying, you can be spending responsibly and just like because of the amount of kids you have or the like area that you have to live in right now or something, there's a way to do this job that even working full time, you're like, oh my God, I should just work at a store somewhere or
You'll
something.
get paid the same.
And like to me, that's really sad. Like that should not be the case. And then like but yeah, I'm not trying to say we should start out at 225. I'm just saying. You see that and it's like, okay, all right. All people on their high horse of like therapists make so much money. It's like, can we fucking there's other jobs, okay? That you can say make so much money. Can we not fucking attack therapists? We're really not thriving, not greatly out here most of the time, okay?
So, turning the corner into offering just some good general information to the public, something that you might want to know about these platforms to help understand the struggles of the therapist, and also just some tidbits for the therapist if you are considering joining one of these platforms. At the top, my biggest thing, and I say this all the freaking time, is that if you join one of these startup companies, it's a tool, right? It is a tool. Please do not join one of these companies thinking that they personally are going to fill up your caseload. I know I said at the top of the episode that joining insurances and these startup companies are a great way to fill up your caseload, but Ollie made a beautiful point, and it is 100% true. It is not their job to fill up the caseload. There is no one at Rula headquarters looking at your caseload, seeing how many you have, and saying, "Oh, let me route, so and so to you. You need another client." There's no one doing that. These are great ways to increase your visibility, right? To increase accessibility to you, but you are not paying for results. Even if they say in their marketing, "We will double your caseload." In theory, that is true, but there is no one directly giving you clients. And so if you are considering joining one of those, just keep that in mind. Yeah, it's a tool. I find it so difficult to get upset with something when you treat it for what it's for. It is not there to manage your practice. It is there to offer a service, and that is to make paneling easier and to help you connect with the client and get paid. That's all they're there for.
Well, and Danny, I really liked this one that you put on here too, which is the whole like insurance and to like be on top of it, because if an insurance changes or it lapses, like the therapist does not get paid, because then you are not under that insurance during the time of session. And then you're probably going to get charged that full fee. So whether it's for the client's knowledge or the therapist, because I learned real quick when people were like so excited about starting a new job, or like with all the layoffs and then needing to get a new job, it took me like one time of a real close call to be like the minute I heard those things at the end of session, I'd be like, "Can you stay on just a few extra minutes?" I'm like, "Let's talk about logistics here." And I would just like warn them or be like, "Hey, you might want to check on this because like we can move our next one out." Or like I just learned it was so much better to get on top of it before we have another session and the person's like, "Shit, do you take this insurance?" And it's like, no, I don't. And so, yeah, I think that's something good to know, because I did not realize that, obviously, before working. Or like I wasn't quite expecting like, oh, this is something I will have to navigate.
Yeah, and like that and taking that to just a greater point is, please don't take the service for granted. If your therapist accepts insurance, either directly or is working with one of these startup companies that panel them, odds are they are either a freaking saint and are offering, time. It's difficult for them. Private practice is not for everyone, and they still need to make a living. These people go to school, they learn so many wonderful skills. They put their own mental health through the ringer to be able to, bring you a plan to get your life in order. And they're not businessmen or women. They're not business people. No, I think we've talked about this before, is that, yeah, we definitely talked about this before, is that schools don't really prepare you for the business end of things. And so it's not their fault when they get licensed and it turns out they can't make it in private practice. And so these people are either saints, they're offering their time, they're just trying to make a living, or they're in just as much need as you are. At the end of the day, it is their job. We're all trying to, live a happy and comfortable life. And so please do not take the service for granted. If you find out that your favorite therapist takes the insurance, knowing the state of American healthcare, maybe the next time you go and see your therapist, you give them a huge thank you. Say thank you. Because of you, you're taking the hit and you're probably making half of what you can be making. And I get to pay $20, $15. And I've learned so much from you. If you can say, Danny and Ollie said to give you a big, virtual hug, then please do that, because those people are working their asses off to be there for you. And communicate. Personally, I know that life is hard. and I know that life happens. And I have various cancellations and appointment switches. I had one today. Right? I had a client scheduled for 2 p.m. and whatever, life happened, and they feel comfortable. I see this as a strength. They feel comfortable enough to reach out to me and say, hey, Danny, this is what's going on. I want to show up. What times you got? And they understand that if I can offer something, I will. And if I can't, I can't. But the communication is the biggest thing. If you guys are going through insurances, please understand that that's just the point of therapy, is to build relationships and to improve your communication. And so please drop an email, send a text, make a phone call, communicate to your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my biggest things. I don't know if you have anything else
I
on.
love that, Danny. I think I've just heard kind of in a similar vein, so many people be like very frustrated or confused why their therapist just like maybe up and left some of these platforms, or frustrated after like, oh, like it's my third therapist that's like I've seen a handful of times, then they left. And like, to each their own about how much they'd really want to communicate to a client about that, or maybe why they're leaving in a vague sense. Like, that's a personal decision. But I do think that I would just want people to know, and I'm giving therapists the benefit of the doubt. I really think if they're doing that, it's probably because of something we like talked about today. It's probably because some of like the back end stuff, or they were just like, I cannot afford to live off of what I'm being paid, or like I'm being like they're trying to make us take on more and more people, and I like physically cannot take on this many people. Like I will never sleep. Like this doesn't make any sense. And so I do think to like please give, if you've noticed that things like that are happening, or you're having trouble with a certain platform, like the therapist probably are too. Like it's probably not just like a one-way thing, and like honestly both parties are probably like losing. And so I just encourage people in the frustration, which is valid, like just it might happen again. If it's happened a handful of times, it is likely to happen again. So maybe think that like they're also going through something that's causing the therapist to leave. Not to say that they're not outliers, or again that maybe they could have communicated it differently, but all in all, it's like it's our job, like we gotta make a living too.
Yeah. Whew. Anything else?
This was great for transparency, and I feel like we already kind of talked about it, but Danny and I are both on Alma. Like I accept one insurance. I'm very okay with that. It works in my practice. It's the agreement that that insurance has with Alma, I am okay with. The minute I am not, I will leave, because like unfortunately, like I have a business to run, and like I care about my clients immensely, but like I have chickens to feed. Like I have a life I have to live. Pilates does not pay for itself. No, I'm kidding. I live a very, very frugal lifestyle overall, I would say.
And you work a lot.
Huh?
And you work a lot.
Thank you. I do work a lot. I do. And it's like these nails. I mean, I go to a great place up the street, and it's like they're cheaper than other places, but like I can't go without my nails. What is the world asking of me? I have limits.
Small pleasures.
So, yeah. So I think it's like I'm with Danny, there's no judgment around people that choose to or don't choose to use these services, but I think it's good, or these companies, but I think it's good that we just at least talk about it. And so like clients know a little more about what they are, therapists know a little bit more of what to expect, and you just find the right thing that works for you. Because like Danny, I'm cool with jumping ship. You're not paying my bills. You're not taking care of my life. And like Danny said, Rula doesn't give a shit about you. And not just Rula, insert any of these companies. Yeah. No one gives a shit about you. And to be honest, maybe this is just the like cynical existentialist in me. I think the sooner that we can just accept that, the like happier and more freeing life we can live. And so it's like, yeah, you don't give a shit. You wouldn't care if I saw one person on this platform or 12 random company, and like you'd pull out if it was beneficial for you in a second. So like when I need to do that, I will. Peace out.
I love it when existential Ollie comes out. It's my favorite.
It's funny because I think people think I'm this like peppy, raw, like sing in the shower type. And I'm this like, oh, we all die. Like, don't fear it. Embrace it. Is it an end or a new beginning? Who knows?
It's the same thing. I am on Alma with limited insurances. Why do I do it? Is because I know that not everybody can afford, and I see it as a kind of happy hour. So I have a few times that are just normally pretty vacant, and so my thought process is, hey, why not offer that to a select few people who can really use it. And so if I can catch you on Alma and help you there, then why not?
Danny, I'm glad we didn't ixnay this one. I think it was important, and I'm glad we talked about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So whether you're a client that needs to use your insurance, whether you're a therapist that needs to panel with insurance,
Whether you're Danny's mom, my husband. Hey guys, shout out.
yeah, no shame, no blame. Yeah, just hoping that we can give a little understanding and information about that. I guess I'll see you next time, Allie.
Of course. See you next week, Danny.
Bye bye.